I get it. I totally get it. You'd be throwing spears at me on all sorts of digital platforms and commenting on YouTube about why have you brought these two in a direct comparison scenario. Hear me out, because this is based on the actual confusion of the actual buyers. At this price point, which is basically between 25 lakh and 35 lakh rupees, there are two sets of customers. One set comprises of people who are die-hard SUV fans and they know exactly what they want. The other set, those consumers are a little bit more confused, and while their basic need is that of a big family mover, they gravitate towards the SUVs because of the sheer appeal of a typical SUV shape, the muscularity that it offers, the brutality that it offers. And that's the set of consumers that we are going to cater to in this report. We're locking the Innova HyCross in a battle against the Scorpio N, two very different vehicles that approach the question of family transportation in their own unique ways. When it comes to buying a car, the way it looks still plays a very big role in the buying decision. Here we have the classic battle of an MPV design versus a traditional SUV stance. Credit to Toyota for trying to give the HyCross a very bold look, but even though it does have some great muscular design features like the strong grille section, and it kind of mimics the Hilux to some extent. Yes, I know it's a little bit bizarre, but it does look in isolation like it's the Hilux grille. But overall, there is no getting away from the fact that the HyCross is still very clearly an MPV. It's a very smart looking MPV, don't absolutely doubt that even a bit. And it also looks pretty smart and pretty desirable as well, if I may say that. But it does not really have any SUV design treatments to show off, much to the disappointment of Toyota, I must say, because the company has really tried. So while that is the story of how this vehicle looks on the outside, what matters more from a buyer's perspective is how it feels on the inside. You spend time, of course, inside the car and not standing outside and looking at it. And what hits you immediately as you step in is this huge departure that Toyota has made on every aspect with the HyCross. The cabin is refreshingly up to date with a big touchscreen system over here in the center, and the subtle but nicely done brushed aluminum finish on the borders is also pretty good, and it looks very smart. Plus the general approach, it's all very nice and completely different from what you get in the Cresta. While you get soft touch panels on the dashboard and the door cards, and the upholstery also makes it feel plush in here, there are still some bits that leave you wanting for better treatment. The lower half of the dashboard, for example, or the lower door panels. There is also the AC housing console at the back, or the grey plastic molding along the last row of the seats. That just leaves a lot to be desired. The hard, grainy look is not something that you expect from a car which goes at about 35 lakh rupees for the top-end variant. Then, if you notice the roof felt material, this is also not really all that great, and the felt lining at the bottom, towards the bottom of the front seats that is, they're also not very fitting for such a vehicle. But where the HyCross scores hugely is its seating flexibility and the sheer space and comfort it offers, which essentially is the central objective of this car anyway. In the 7-seat configuration like this one, the one that we are driving, you get two fantastic captain chairs in the middle, and if you choose the 8-seat version, those will get replaced with a bench, which in my view affords more practicality. Typically, when a manufacturer decorates the brochure by mentioning the vehicle to be a 7-seater or an 8-seater, often the claims are a bit bloated, which is not the case with the HyCross. The last row genuinely offers sufficient space even for tall persons, and the seat contours are also pretty good enough. They offer moderate levels of comfort as well. So going long distances or being seated in the last row for several hours at a stretch should not really be a bother. But what I miss is the tumble function. With the press of a button, the middle seats would fold and flip, and they will allow a pretty easy access to the last row. much like the Kia Carens. I think that does that job fantastically well. But that's not the case in this car. You have to move the seat on the rails and tilt it forward. It's, I think, a bit archaic. The rear passengers also get their own dedicated AC function, so you can set the temperatures the way you like in the second row and then beyond that. So it's a two-zone AC system, that is. And the people in the last row, they get their own dedicated vents as well. The seats in the HyCross are absolutely brilliant, very, very comfortable, and the space on offer is immense. But the glory item are the ottomans in the middle row. Press the button by the side and they emerge. The trouble is, there is not enough space for you to stretch the legs out to make use of the ottomans, so it's really no good. And if you try to force it, the feet are going to get stuck under the back of the front seats. It's really when you push the front seat all the way forward will you be able to truly enjoy the ottomans. Other bits worth mentioning, first and foremost, the panoramic roof. Let me show you. The glass area is absolutely huge and it gives you a sense of airiness in an otherwise already very airy cabin. The center console has proper buttons to make life easier, and the touchscreen, while it can be a little slow sometimes and does not really give you much choice to work the features, it's an okay unit and lets you play with the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all wirelessly of course. And in the space above the glove compartment right here in front of the passenger, you can have a wireless charging tray, but that is a dealer option. And now, how's the HyCross to drive? This is where the two cars, the Scorpio N and this one, are completely different. It's not small margins on subtleties, it's a spectrum of immense differences. The Innova HyCross is a unibody construction based on the global TNGA-C platform, and the benefits of the monocoque chassis are immediately evident. The way it rides, the sudden bumps to compression transitions, it's all much better controlled. Of course, being a tall vehicle, it does roll about a fair bit, but it's not disconcerting in any way. And consider its fundamental purpose and you will then actually be very pleased with the way this thing drives, which is very unlike the earlier Innova experiences you may have had. Because the monocoque construction affords greater width of allowances, the suspension setup can have a good damping balance. At low speeds, you do feel a slight firmness, but it exists to enable greater control, and as the speeds go up, the stability is absolutely supreme. The HyCross rides on 18-inch wheels with substantial rubber wrapped around them, but it still feels and looks under-tired. Anyway, the comfort levels are very high and the seats are absolutely lovely, as I said. The ride is superb and the space is huge. Fantastic, fantastic car to be driven around in. But it's also reasonably good to drive. Not an enthusiast's car in any way, but it does shift properly. It's the 184 horsepower that feels plenty good, and the torque build-up is also very linear. The motor alone is worth about 200 Newton meters, and the engine by itself makes about 188 Newton meter. The strong pull of the Crista, that's definitely missing, but it's still a fairly decent engine. The one that we have is the hybrid, so it's a 2-liter Atkinson cycle engine, and it works with two different motors. One is a generator motor, and that takes the kinetic energy from the engine, converts that into electric energy in the motor, and then of course the motor sends it off to the battery to be stored as chemical energy. The engine feeds the generator motor essentially. The other one is the drive motor, which takes a battery supply and drives the car on electric power. It's a small battery pack, just about 1.7 kilowatt hour, but it does a good job of being a strong hybrid system. The notion that hybrid has a traditional CVT gearbox is incorrect. There are no pulleys over here, no steel belt facing tension between them. The HyCross has a couple of planetary gears that work together with the engine and the drive motor. It acts as a power split device and can be thought of as the output of a transmission. It is responsible purely for distributing power from the engine, motor and the generator. This setup definitely lacks the clarity of a proper automatic gearbox, but it works pretty well nonetheless. The HyCross also gets different drive modes, their power, eco and normal. Pretty self-explanatory, honestly, but the normal feels perfectly good for most applications.
The HyCross gets level 2 ADAS functions and is getting quite popular among mid-segment to high-segment cars. Not too long back, it all seemed quite distant and driverless cars were a pipe dream. But level 2 is fast becoming the norm, and in the HyCross there's adaptive cruise control, lane keep and assist, which is all good. But I found the force correction on the steering a bit too aggressive. It will do well to calm down a little and be more gradual.
Overall though, the HyCross is fantastic and it makes for a very impressive family car. That's a solid cruising machine. Seated in the Scorpio N now. And this one is a completely different story. I think they've gone backwards on the exterior design with this one. Why I say this is because I've seen the Scorpio grow from its early days in 2002 all the way till now that it has become the classic. And the Scorpio became the classic because of the entry of this one, the Scorpio N. There was a sense of achievement with the way the Scorpio looked. With the N now added to its name, it has lost that sting that one would expect. The rear especially, it's rather bleak and the execution is just not very attractive. But the cabin of the Scorpio N is a huge step forward from the Scorpio that is now designated as classic. The splash of brown in the center of the dashboard that wraps around the AC vents and the integrated touchscreen infotainment unit is a bit of a blunt design, but it works in this old school SUV platform somehow. Really like the instrument console, the analog dials and the very crisp readouts, that's all very good. There is more analog going on, especially in the middle over here. On the center console, you have physical buttons for the HVAC and entertainment, and things are finished off by this dial over here that lets you go from regular road use to some off-roady bits. Space on offer is not as good as that in the HyCross, and the cabin generally lacks that level of flexibility as well. The last row is not great at all, and the luggage space is pretty unimpressive compared against the Toyota HyCross over here. Seats and the general sense of comfort is also at middling levels. Considering that it is a ladder frame construction, it's not bad though. I've had terrible jumpy experiences in some other body-on-ladder vehicles, but the Scorpio N feels a little bit more composed and a little bit more buttoned up. Still, as a family car, as a 7 or an 8-seater, it can't really hold a candle to the Innova HyCross. On features, it is neck and neck. Both get ADAS systems, with the one in the Toyota feeling a little bit more aggressive. There is the usual array of connectivity, of course. This one also gets the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, both wireless and all that stuff. But the Scorpio N does not get dual-zone climate control. The quality levels are just okay. The materials used are pretty strong and there is a general sense of indestructibility to it, but it does not really exude polish and sophistication that a 30 lakh rupee car should. On safety, the Scorpio N benefits hugely from the great PR around its global NCAP safety ratings. It got 5 stars for adult occupant protection and 3 stars for child occupant protection. But at this point, I must also say that the Innova Krista received a 5-star certification from the ASEAN NCAP, so there is still reason to believe that the much more advanced and modern unibody construction of the HyCross should do better. How is the Scorpio N to drive? Well, it does what one expects. It goes unfazed over any road surface. And that is thanks to the ladder frame construction. Pretty old school, but superbly proven when it comes to dependability and rough road compatibility. No matter how awesome any monocoque SUV is, you still approach big dips and potholes or more crazy stuff with some apprehension and seriousness. You would slow down immensely and negotiate the road and then, of course, carry on smilingly. In the Scorpio N, you don't care. Go at any speed without a care in the world for whatever the road throws at you. It's all gobbled up. You do, of course, jiggle about and you get tossed about a bit, but that's the vehicle's sense of humor. It takes such things very, very lightly. Is it uncomfortable? Immensely so. It is very utilitarian in feel, but it also lets you know that the Scorpio N is indestructible. The steering feels a little odd. The response is variable. It goes from being light and vague at low speeds to being wayward and grumpy as speeds go up. But the engine feels very strong. The mid-range is a monster and it pulls effortlessly with even the slightest inputs on the throttle. And the gearbox, that is also pretty good. It's a proper automatic and lacks that incoherent feel of Innova's transmission. The 172 horses and the 400 Newton meters, they give you the confidence that it's going to get you out of trouble. And the fact that there is also locking differential adds immensely to the already inflated confidence levels. But nobody is really going to drive the Scorpio N as a proper off-road machine. Yes, of course, there are going to be some enthusiasts out there who will try doing absolutely crazy stuff, but that is a very, very small percentage. Most of the people are just going to use this as their everyday car and also to take them on intercity trips. That is exactly why we have the other car in this comparo, which is the HyCross, because again, the appeal factor is pretty much the same. Long distance cruising, good comfort, those are the kind of attributes that you measure both these cars on. So the Scorpio N's appeal lies in its rawness. If you like that sort of stuff, absolutely great. You're not really the one that this report is for. You belong to the other set of the customers, those who are SUV fans and want exactly such a thing. Go ahead, buy this, and that's the end of it. I'm back in the Innova HyCross. And we started this piece by declaring that we are addressing those who feel confused between what to buy. A ready for the rough ladder frame SUV, or they want a more plush and comforting experience of an MPV. In this setting, with the HyCross in the picture, the MPV makes more sense. Yes, of course, the Scorpio N has more robustness to flaunt, but it is not as pleasing a thing to behold as the HyCross. The HyCross is a better family hauler, it has a better engineering feel, and it's plusher and it's more sophisticated.